Okay. I think we're on now. Let me just make sure there's nothing in the background that will be causing it to lose battery quickly. All right. Get that off. All right. So we're live, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So I hope everyone out there, whether you're keeping Feast of Trumpets, whether you're keeping it today or the 26th into the 27th, like our fellowship is, just want to ahead of time say I trust that everyone's going to be having a great feast season and a Yom Teruah out there. So today is just a regular weekly Sabbath for us. We'll be probably Yahuwah willing. We'll be doing a Yom Teruah meeting either on the evening of the 26th or on the day of Yom Teruah. I'm still trying to figure that out. So I just wanted to put a public announcement out there for everyone on YouTube land out there. So you're probably going to see us either the evening of Yom Teruah or the day of Yom Teruah doing a study, Yahuwah willing. So today is our weekly Sabbath, though, and we're going to be doing our weekly Sabbath reading. So Bereshit, Genesis 34, we're going to start at. We're going to try to get to 38 today. So let me just put my screen up for you guys. Screen share. Got the audio on. Let's see here. I should have my sword up there. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to 34 now. Let's see here. Here we go. So Genesis 34. This is the chapter about Dinah. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she bore to Yaakov, went forth to observe the daughters of the inhabitants. And Shechem, the son of Imor the Hivite, the ruler of the land, saw her and took her and lay with her and humbled her. Okay. And he was attached to the soul of Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spoke kindly to the damsel. Okay. So in my opinion here, this is not hinting at rape at all. This is him laying with her, committing fornication, and so on and so forth. So let me see here. So verse 4 it says, Shechem spoke to Emor his father, saying, take for me this damsel to wife. And Yaakov heard that the son of Emor had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the plain. And Yaakov was silent until they came in. And Emor, the father of Shechem, went forth to Yaakov to speak to him. And the sons of Yaakov came from the plain when they heard the men were deeply pained, and it was very grievous to them, because the man worked folly in Yashrael, having lain with the daughter of Jacob, and so it must not be. So, and again, this is iterated here. I think this is clearly showing that it's willful intercourse. Obviously, the fact that it says lain with her rather than raped. Okay. So anyway, so I just wanted to make that point there in verse 7, clearly hinting that it was consensual between both parties. Fornication pretty much is what happened. Okay. And Emor spoke to them, saying, Shechem, my son, has chosen in his heart your daughter. Give her therefore to him for a wife, and intermarry with us. Give us your daughters, take your daughters for your sons, and dwell in the midst of us. And behold, the land is spacious before you. Dwell in it and trade and get possessions in it. Okay. We'll touch on after this chapter why I personally believe Yaakov, even if he wanted to, could not intermarry with them.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on that after we read this chapter. And dwell in the midst of us, and behold, the land is spacious before you, and dwell in it and trade and get possessions in it. And Shechem said to her father and to her brothers, I would find favor before you, and we will give whatever you shall name, multiplied of dowry very much, and I will accordingly as you shall have to me, only you shall give me this damsel for a wife. So he's about to pay a bride price right now. And the sons of Jacob answered to Shechem and Emor his father craftily and spake to him, because they have defiled Dinah their sister. And Simon and Levi, brothers of Dinah, said to them, we shall not be able to do this thing, to give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for it is a reproach to us. Only on these terms will we conform to you, dwell among you, if you also will be as we are, in that every male of you be circumcised. And we will give our daughters to you, and we will take of your daughters for wives to us. And we will dwell with you, and we will be as one ethnicity or race. But if you will not hearken to us to be circumcised, we will take our daughter and depart. And the words pleased Emor and Shechem, the son of Emor. And the young man delayed not to do this thing, for he was much attached to Jacob's daughter, and he was the most honorable of all in his father's house. And Emor and Shechem, his son, came to the gate of the city, spoke to the men of their city, saying, these men are peaceable. Let them dwell with us upon the land, and let them trade in it. And behold, the land is extensive before them. We will take their daughters to us for wives, and we will give them our daughters. Only on these terms will the men conform to us to dwell with us, as so to be of one people. If every male of us be circumcised, as they also are circumcised. And shall not their cattle and their herds and their possessions be ours? Only in this let us conform to them, and they will dwell with us. Okay. And all that went in at the gate of their city hearkened to Emor and Shechem his son, and they were circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin, every male. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, two sons of Jacob, Simon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took each man his sword and came upon the city securely and slew every male. So this kind of explains why you get to Genesis 48 with the Barakas, why Jacob says what he says to those two. He's like, Judah is a crazy, basically saying his son's a crazy man. He so he kind of reprimands Judah for doing what he does here. Because it
was Simeon and Levi, wasn't it?
Oh, my bad. Simeon and Levi.
Judah. No,
my bad.
Judah's okay.
Simeon and Levi.
Simeon and Levi.
If I'm not mistaken, though, those two in Genesis 48 get a little reprimanding
I think you're right.
When the Barakas come. So, yeah. And they slew Emor the Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of the house of Shechem and went forth. But the sons of Jacob came upon the wounded and ravaged the city wherein they had defiled Dinah, their sister. And their sheep, their oxen, their donkeys, they took, in all things whatsoever were in the city and whatsoever were in the plain. And they took captive all the persons of them and all their store and their wives, and plundered both whatever things were in the city, whatever things there were in the houses. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have made me hateful, so that I should be evil to all the inhabitants of the land, both among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I am few in number. They will gather themselves against me and cut me in pieces, and I shall be utterly destroyed in my house. And they said, nay, but shall they treat our sister as a harlot? So basically what it is in a nutshell, these two brothers are mad. Justifiably so. They're mad that Shechem, this guy Shechem, basically, seduced their sister. Mm-hmm. That's what's really going on here. So anyway, so I know the traditional view of that chapter is that she was raped, but there's really nothing to imply she was raped in that chapter other than a header of certain Bibles implying that. There's no language in that chapter that would say she's raped. Okay. She was consensually agreeing to do what she did with Shechem initially. You even see a hint in the chapter, the first verse, she's observing the daughters of the Canaanites. Why is she observing them? She's starting to notice, oh, look how they are attracting men. She probably started, I'm just implying here, she probably started copying the daughters of the Canaanites and, probably started dressing like them and acting like them and probably, allured, Shechem. So again, I think the guilt there is pretty 50-50 in my opinion. So anyway, but
it's interesting the different verbs that are used. Septuagint says violated, but the ESV says humiliated.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I guess.
Humbled, humiliated, humbled. The word is there, humbled. Violated, I don't know where they're getting violated from. The Lexham's probably modernizing it a little too much there. If you look at the actual word in the Greek, it's humbled, which when you sleep with a woman, you humble her regardless. Has nothing to do with what type of sex. Humbled means humbled. So that itself is not going to say rape. And it's very possible whoever translated the Lexham already had a preconceived bias that she was raped. So that's why they put violate. So that's probably why. But nowhere does it say that it said the rape, even the word rape and humbled are not the same word in the Hebrew. So yeah, the Greek word here is tapieno, to abase, humble, abase myself by, humble living, make low, humble condition, reduce. And you can, by the way, you can see this, I think, in Deuteronomy 24, they use the same word where it says you could lawfully take a captive wife from those nations and humble her, not rape her, humble her. So humble does not mean rape, just FYI. Right. Humble just means you humbled her. Anytime a man takes a woman's virginity, he's humbling her. So that's kind of lost in our Western Greco-Roman culture, that humbling a woman would be just generally laying with her is humbling her. Anyway, so let's see here. Genesis 35, verse 1. Okay, so, and Elohim said to Jacob, arise, go up to the place Bethel and dwell there, and make there an altar to the Elohim that appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother. And Jacob said to his house, to all that were with him, remove the strange mighty ones that were with you from the midst of you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes. And let us rise, go up to Bethel, and let us make there an altar to Elohim, who hearkened to me in the day of calamity, who was with me and preserved me throughout the journey by which I went. And they gave to Jacob the strange mighty ones which were in their hands, and the earrings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under the turpentine tree which is in Shechem, and destroyed them to this day. So Yasharal departed from Shechem, and the fear of Elohim was upon the cities round about them, and they did not pursue after the children of Yasharal. And Jacob came to Luzah, which is in the land of Canaan, which is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built an altar and called the name of the place Bethel, for there Elohim appeared to him when he fled from the face of his brother Esau. Okay. And Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried below Bethel under the oak, and Jacob called its name the oak of mourning. Verse 9. And Elohim appeared to Jacob once more in Luzah when he came out of Mesopotamia of Syria, and Yahuwah baruched him. And Yahuwah said to him, your name shall not be called Jacob, but Yasharal shall be your name. And he called his name Yasharal. And Elohim said to him, I am your Elohim. Increase and multiply, for nations and gatherings of nations shall be of you, and kings shall come out of your loins. And the land which I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I have given to you. And it shall come to pass that I will give this land also to your seed after you. And Elohim went up from him from the place where he spoke with him. And Yaqub set up a pillar in the place where Elohim spoke with him, a pillar of stone, and offered a libation upon it and poured oil upon it. And Yaqub called the name of the place in which Elohim spoke with him, Bethel. Okay, there's a lot in italics here. I'm trying to see here. And it came to pass when he drew near to Chabratha to enter into Ephrathah, Rachel travailed, and in her she was in hard labor. And it came to pass, and we're in verse 17 of Genesis 35. Okay, let me go back. Once I see Joshua's hands up, I'll go to him once I finish this chapter here. It came to pass in hard labor, midwife said to her, be of two courage, for you shall have this son. And it came to pass in her giving up the spirit that she called his name the son of my pain, but his father called his name Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried in the way of the course of Ephrathah. This is Bethlehem. And Yaqub set up a pillar on her tomb. This is the pillar on the tomb of Rachel until this day. Okay, moving on here, verse 21. And it came to pass when Yasharal dwelt in that land that Reuben went and laid with Bela, the concubine of his father Yaqub. And Yasharal heard, and the thing appeared grievous before him. The sons of Yaqub were 12. The sons of Leah, the firstborn of Yaqub, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, and Zabulon, and the sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin, and the sons of Bilhah, the handmaid of Rachel, Dan and Naphtali, the sons of Zelphah, the handmaid of Leah, Gad, and Asher. These the sons of Yaqub, which were born to him in Mesopotamia, Syria. And Yaqub came to Isaac his father, to Mamre, to a city of the plain. This is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And the days of Isaac, which he lived, were 180 years. Let me know, guys, if there's any difference there. Sometimes the genealogies act up there. So 180. And Isaac gave up the spirit and died and was laid to his family, old and full of days, and Esau and Yaqub, his sons, buried him. So it seems like this is where Solomon would get the concept of, when you die, you give up your spirit, and your ruach goes back to Yahuwah, who gave you your spirit. So that seems to be where this is probably the concept that Solomon was pulling from. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
I don't know why the LXX is putting that certain part in 16 in italics, because it's all there. It's in the ABP and the LXX.
Yeah, that edition of the Brenton sometimes screws up and puts italics where it's not supposed to be. Let me see here. I think it's an updated Brenton's that my sword's using is the problem. Sometimes it gets
going back to even though it was only Simeon and Levi who went in and slew everybody, it was all the brothers that were talking together with what's his face, and it's, in my opinion, they're being hypocrites. They don't want their their sister to be a whore, and yet you have Reuben that went up and slept with his father's concubine. You have Judah that slept with a whore, not realizing that, he thought he was sleeping with a prostitute, not realizing he was sleeping with his daughter-in-law. But the point is that he went out to sleep with a prostitute. So they want their family not to be whores, but they don't mind doing it themselves.
Yeah.
Hypocritical.
Yeah. What's weird, going back to the point you brought up in verse 16, what's weird I'm seeing here is certain versions of the LXX don't have it. So I think it's a manuscript family issue because I'm noticing the Alexandria version doesn't have it either. So I'm wondering if that's like a issue between whatever manuscript family they're using. Maybe the Codex Vaticanus has it omitted. Because I'm noticing that it just says in Jacob removed from Bethel. It doesn't have like the whole extra statement there. So let me see here. Yeah. Oh no, my bad. No, that is the statement. Okay, so the Alexandrian, to your point, bro, actually does have it without brackets. Okay. So that's definitely a Brenton's issue. I don't know why he puts brackets or he puts like parentheses around that statement. I don't know why they do that. If it's in the text, I don't know why they would do that. So it's definitely implies that whole verse is there, including the extra sentence there. So yeah, strange, very strange. But I also wanted to mention too, since we were on the topic of the previous chapter, technically Jacob could not allow his sons to intermarry with them anyway. Jacob should have known better anyway. He should have been like, listen, I know your son and my daughter did, but you guys we can't intermarry with you guys.
Yeah.
So his sons actually did a very thing to even lie to them and say that they're going to intermarry with them.
Yeah, that was very
knowing that they can't.
Right.
You're falsely promising this guy's son that you're going to be able to take your sister. I understand they're mad at him, but like now they're going a little bit too far. They're now, I get you want revenge and all that, but it's like, you're kind of, it's like two wrongs don't make a right there. Now you're lying to the guy saying, oh yeah, we'll intermarry with you. You just gotta be circumcised. Scripturally speaking, them being circumcised wouldn't have done anything. If I'm not mistaken, these are Hittites, right? These are
that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's two different tribes mentioned between the Septuagint. My Septuagint says.
Well, no, it says Hivite. That's still one of the nations they're not supposed to intermarry with. Hivite. Yeah, Hivite. He was a Hivite. Shechem was a Hivite. Genesis 34:2 says it right there. So there's no way that they
Mine says Horite. Horite.
I don't know why it says that. Lexham, sometimes they screw up on certain words.
That just confused me a little bit because
every other
Septuagint
says Hivite. Every other, so I don't know what's going on with Lexham there. They're screwing up with the translation there. Yeah, it's Hivite. Regardless, they're both from Canaan lineage. It doesn't really matter which giant tribe it is. It's the fact that they're all from a cursed lineage that Israel is not supposed to marry into. And so realistically, Jacob, their father, should have known better, been like, guys, what are you doing? We can't be marrying into them. Like, your sister screwed up. Yeah, she screwed up, but you can't let her intermarry with them. They were about to make a covenant to intermarry not just with her, but with their daughters and sons, giving their daughters to their sons to their daughters. Can't do that. And then you see later on in the Torah of Moses, when that comes about, Yahuwah makes sure they realize that. He's like, listen, you are not to intermarry with their daughters. They're not to intermarry with your sons. He says it verbatim once they get to the law of Moses. So that seems to be why Yahuwah didn't punish them too harshly with Levi and Simeon. It seems like that was part of his purpose anyway, was to utterly destroy those nations. So you could see Yahuwah kind of showing mercy here, where Levi and Simeon and these sons were not acting too righteously here. They were kind of being wicked, but Yahuwah's like, all right, I'm going to use this for my purpose and allow them to do what they're going to do here, because these are Hivites that they're killing.
Right.
So, that's kind of showing that Yahuwah can use anyone for his purpose, even his own people that are being wicked at a time. These patriarchs that make up the 12 tribes, these guys should have, not been deceiving someone. But at the same time, who is going to use who he's going to use to get his purpose accomplished. So, but yeah, that is a very 2-point brother Joshua brought up, actually, about they were being hypocrites, because later on, Judah even marries Canaanite women.
Oh, yeah.
So him being mad because a Hivite humbled his sister, but then he willfully marries Canaanite women later on. Yeah, very hypocritical, I should say. Yeah. So but anyway, so let's see here. I think now we're gonna go. There wasn't much from 35. You pretty much just get the descendants of Jacob here. You get the 12 tribes and all the sons he has. It's kind of like a recounting of all the children here. Trying to see if there's anything important. No, I pretty much touched on the giving up of the spirit when you die and all that. All right, so Mom, go ahead and read Genesis 36.
Okay. Alrighty, it's entitled Esau's Descendants. These are the generations of Esau, parentheses, that is Edom. Esau took his wives from the Canaanites, Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Siphion the Hivite, and Basmath, Ishmael's daughter, the sister of Nebaioth. And Adah bore to Esau Eliphaz. Basmath bore Reuel, and Aholibamah bore Yeush, Yalam, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. Then Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the members of his household, his livestock, all his beasts, and all his property that he had acquired in the land of Canaan. He went into a land away from his brother Jacob, for their possessions were too great for them to dwell together. The land of their sojournings could not support them because of their livestock. So Esau settled in the hill country of Seir. Esau is Edom. These are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Reuel, the son of Basemath, the wife of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Sepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son. She bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These are the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Reuel, Nahat, Serah, Shema, and Mitzah. These are the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Siphion, Esau's wife. She bore to Esau Yeush, Yalam, and Korah. These are the chiefs of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau, the chiefs Teman, Omar, Sepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. These are the chiefs of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Adah. These are the sons of Reuel, Esau's son, the chiefs Nahat, Serah, Shema, and Mitzah. These are the chiefs of Reuel in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Aholibamah, Esau's wife, the chiefs Jeush, Yalam, and Korah. These are the chiefs born of Aholibamah, the daughters of Anah, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Esau, and these are their chiefs. These are the sons of Seir the Horite, the inhabitants of the land: Lotan, Shobal, Siphion, Anah, Dishan, Ezer, and Dishan. These are the chiefs of the Horites, the sons of Seir in the land of Edom. The sons of Loran were Hori and Hemam, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. These are the sons of Shobal: Alvan, Manahat, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. These are the sons of Tzipion: Aya and Anah. He is the Anah who found the hot springs in the wilderness as he pastured the donkeys of Tzipion, his father. These are the children of Anah: Dishan and Aholabamah, the daughter of Anah. These are the sons of Dishan: Herdan, Eshban, Itran, and Sharon. These are the sons of Ezer: Bilhan, Savan, and Akan. These are the sons of Dishan: Uz and Aran. These are the chiefs of the Horites, the chief Lotan, Shobal, Tzipion, Anah. Dishan, Ezer, and Dishan. These are the chiefs of the Horites, chief by chief in the land of Seir. These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the Israelites. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, the name of his city being Dinhabah. Bela died, and Yobab, the son of Sarah of Basra, reigned in his place. Yobab died, and Husham of the land of the Temanites reigned in his place. Husham died, and Hadad, the son of Bedai, who defeated Midian in the country of Moab, reigned in his place, the name of his city being Avith. Hadad died, and Samlah of Misrakah reigned in his place. Samlah died, and Shaul of Rehoboth on the Euphrates reigned in his place. Shaul died, and Baal-Hanan, the son of Achbor, reigned in his place. Baal-Hanan, the son of Achbor, died, and Hadar reigned in his place, the name of his city being Pau. His wife's name was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred, daughter of Metzahah. These are the names of the chiefs of Esau, according to their clans and their dwelling places, by their names, the chiefs Timnah, Alva, Yethet, Aholomabah, Elah, Pinan, Kenaz, Temnan, Mitzar, Magdiel, and Iram. These are the chiefs of Edom, that is Esau, the father of Edom, according to their dwelling places in the land of their possession.
Hmm. You did good.
Thank you, Doug.
So what's interesting here is you have this guy named Jobab. Because the wonderful Mazarites want to take things out, we don't know who Jobab actually is. Jobab later on became known as Job. So Job was the son of Bozrah, or let me see here. So it says here in the LXX of Job chapter 42, verse 17 in the Septuagint, says, Job died an old man full of days, and is written that he will rise again with those whom Yahuwah raises up. This man is described in the Syriac book as living in the land of Uz on the borders of Edom, or Idumea, and Arabia. And his name before was Jobab. And having taken an Arabian wife, he begot a son whose name was Enon. And he himself was the son of his father Zerai, one of the sons of Esau, and of his father Bosora, so that he was the fifth from Abraham. These were the kings who reigned in Edom, which country he also ruled over. First Balak, the son of Beor, the name of his city was Denabah, but after Balak, Jobab, who is called Job, and after him, Esau, who was the governor out of that country of Teman, and after him, Adad, son of Barad, who destroyed Midian in the plain of Moab. The name of his city was Gethaim, and his friends who came to him were Eliphaz of the children of Esau, king of the Temanites, Bildad, Soaf of the Sukians, and Sophar, king of the Midians. So, yeah, so Jobab is actually Job. So, and if you do a little bit of math and you try to figure out, right, between Genesis 36 and Exodus 1, give or take, Job probably would have been getting close to the end of his life, probably by the time Moses would have been born. So it's possible Moses might have not known him, but it seems like, even according to rabbis' opinions and looking at the Mishnah, the historical records in the Mishnah, they seem to believe that Moses's dad would have known Job, that they would have been kind of contemporaries, possibly at some point in time. And according to rabbinical opinion, I can't say it's fact, but according to rabbinical opinion, the claim is that Masha wrote, they believe Masha wrote the book of Job before he wrote Genesis. So that's the claim. So I don't know if it's true. That's just opinion. That's hearsay. I really don't know. But that's the claim. The claim is that he would have wrote the book of Job. Even if he didn't write the book of Job, the fact that we have this information about Job being already, if it seems like around Genesis 36, he's already old enough to be a king. From what the Septuagint gives us, he's already reigning and stuff like that. Around that time period. So if he's already reigning as a king, he's probably at least a young adult in Genesis 36. He's probably at the minimum from Genesis 36 on, I would say you're talking about a couple hundred years later, and Masha's born. So he's at least a couple hundred years old by the time Masha's born. So the reason I bring this up is because most biblical timelines will put Job, I think, way too early. I think they put Job, like some timelines will put him right after Genesis 10 or whatever, which in reality, there's no way he was born that early. But anyway, go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you got your hand up.
So there are a couple of different things, man. Depending on what you're reading, because translations seem to always mix up names and screw up names depending on what you're reading. Sometimes it's going to say, Genesis 36 is going to say Balak, son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and then Jobab. Some is going to say Balak, son of Beor. And then sometimes you even get Balak and Bala translated as Balaam. That being said, it's something to take note of. It's not a contradiction for sure, but I would kind of side with more, because his friends are directly quoting Torah, almost word for word, they're quoting Torah, stuff that's, you don't see spoken of until you get to the Torah being given on Sinai. I mean, it's possible that, it was before, but I would side more with, honestly, I think that Balaam, son of Beor, even though it doesn't say it in Numbers, I would say that, in my opinion, it's the same Bala or Balak, son of Beor. I think that's the same character, even though it doesn't say that he's a king. I think it's this Balak, son of whoever, what's his name, the king of Moab, who hired Balaam, son of Beor. Either this was a grandson of his or it was the same person. But just because you have the quoting Torah, Job's friends, I think it's possible that this was the same. At this point, Balaam, son of Beor, was a king, and he came to Balak, and then later on, after he gets killed in Numbers,
Yeah,
when
I got it.
when they send when Yahuwah says, okay, now I'm going to send you out because the women of Moab seduced Yasharal, the men of Yasharal. You have Yahuwah sending them out to slaughter the men of Moab, and in that slaughter you have Balaam, son of Beor, getting killed. I think it's possible that Job became king after that. I mean, this could be a different Balaam, son of Beor, but I think just because it's Balaam, son of Beor, and you have Balaam mixed up with Balak and Bala, could be the same person.
Yeah, it's very possible. If it's not the same person, I would say the only other option is you have a son that's named the same name. That's the only other option that could be there. Depending on how old Balak or Balaam is in Genesis 36, I guess would make it plausible if he's a young king after Job died. Because what it seems like it's saying in Genesis 36, I could be wrong, but it seems like it's implying Job reigned before he reigned in Edom. So he would have been younger than Job. So he would have possibly, to your point, been alive still around the time of Numbers. So let me see if I can find the verse I'm talking about here. So it says Genesis 36. What is it? Okay, so you should get, where does Job start being talked about in 36? Sons of Saban, Lotan. Trying to remember. Sair. Because you don't get the genealogy of, let's see here, Asar. Yeah, here we go. So Balak is not mentioned until later in the chapter, and it says, these are the kings which reigned in Edom before King reigned in Israel. Balak, son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of his city was Denabah. Balak died. Oh no, my bad. It's actually the other way around. Balak died, and Jobab, son of Zerai from Bozrah, reigned in his stead. Yeah, it's hard to figure out because it's not telling you when exactly that happened. Again, what we got to realize too is, right, Masha's the one writing Genesis, right? So he's kind of writing history down with some of these genealogies, and Genesis 36 doesn't tell you when these guys are actually dying. There's no like chronological order to when, so there's no way to figure out from this chapter when exactly Balak would have died. But we know that Jobab reigns after him. According to this chapter, it says that he reigned in his stead. So that would, at the minimum, put the book of Job technically around the time of, if that's the same Balak, and that's a big
yeah, I know.
That's a big.
It says that he comes from Pithor, this Balaam, son of Beor, the prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if we can figure out where Pithor is, if it's in one of the areas of where the Edomites live, then it would be the same. If not, then it's a different person.
Yeah, if not, then it might be a son. A lot of the times sons will be given names.
Well, I mean, if it's not the same, if it's not in the area of the Edomite location, it would just be coincidence that their names would be the same.
From what it looks like,
he would have to be in the Edomite location.
It says Euphrates River. It's near, supposedly. Pethor is identified in the Hebrew Bible as the home of the prophet or diviner Balaam, near to the Euphrates River. I don't know how close that would be to Edom or the mountain of Esau. I don't know if that would be anywhere near there.
That Hittite name, Basmat, very similar to Basmati. which is like a Turkey Pakistani name, like basmati rice.
Ah,
And I looked up modern Hittites. It seems that certain areas of Turkey would have is where Hittites, modern day Hittites, even though they're not technically Hittites, but that's where some of the people of Turkey would have descended from Hittite lineage.
interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, so it's kind of conjecture at this point, our view on this, but if there's any truth to this, then Job, the events of the book of Job technically do not take place until you at least get to, for the most part, between Exodus and the book of Numbers. So these Bible timelines, I think we can all agree, having Job take place right after the Tower of Babel is kind of ridiculous. Seriously doubt he would have even been born at that point. The fact of the matter says he's the 5th generation from Abraham. Abraham, I think, he would have been born around what time? Like chronologically, Genesis 11 maybe, or the end of Genesis 10, you would have had the birth of Abraham?
I was told approximately 2400 BC is what I've looked it up if you can go by those records at all, but I was told it was about 2400.
So let's just say that's correct, right? It says 5 generations from Abraham, right? The Septuagint says that's where Job was 5th from Abraham, right? So let's just, for the heck of it, just
250 years earlier. Talking about
Bible Hub,
5,
Bible
6,
timeline, just for the heck of this.
like 26 or 25.
I'm going to show how traditional timelines do not make any logical sense at all. If you go by these timelines online, this does not make any sense at all. That the book of Job would take place right after Genesis 10. Okay, if he's 5th from Abraham, they're essentially saying that he's going to be already grown up, give or take. Well, okay, so what they're trying to say, that's weird. They're trying to say that the Tower of Babel happened 400 years after Genesis 10. Yeah, I seriously doubt that. So yeah, I mean that's a little bit suspect there in my opinion. But anyway, I doubt Job was even born around the time of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, I seriously doubt that. Even most rabbis today would say that he would have been born somewhere after, the Septuagint says 5 generations after Abraham. So that means he was born 5 generations from Abraham. So let's just say a generation's 100 years, right? That you're talking about at least 500 years after Abraham. There's no way he's being born, right after the flood. There's no way. So that's where I disagree with the Bible Hub timeline. Makes no logical sense at all. Why they put him there? It's stupid in my opinion. There's no way he's going to be born in 2100 BC. Seriously doubt it. And that's assuming that the Tower of Babel was 400 years after Shem, Ham, and Japheth come out of the ark. That's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. I don't know, that just doesn't make sense at all. Because the Tower of Babel, I don't even think was that far after they got out of the ark, if I'm not mistaken. From what the story seems like, it's like immediate, like, maybe a couple of years after they get out of the ark, they're going to the Tower of Babel. Or if it is an extended period of time, it's not 400 years later. It's like maybe 50 years or 100 years, maybe. Because then you have Nimrod. He would have to be already a couple hundred years old then. Because he would have to be like 100 or 200 years old at that point. And from all the legends that I've seen, Nimrod was pretty much a young guy around the time Genesis 11 came along. He was not a couple hundred years old or anything. So that seems a little bit way too far in between Genesis 10 and 11. That's I doubt there was a 400-year difference there. So, but anyway, so that's just my opinion on it. I think most Bible canons, they put Job in the wrong place. They either put him too early or too late, usually, in my opinion. So, and so I'll put this in the description once our video gets uploaded, why I think it's way unrealistic. Just if you just look at the dates yourself in between Genesis 10 and 11, I seriously doubt there was that big of a gap of time in between the two chapters. I seriously doubt that. I don't know. It could be Masoretic text based too, why they're putting huge gaps in between. But you know, that would mean then Shem is like essentially already 400 or 500 years old by the time the Tower of Babel happens. You know, that's kind of ridiculous. But anyway. So let's see here. I think we were moving on here. We were going to do where were we on? We just did what Genesis 36. So now we're going to do 37. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So Esau took to himself. Okay, so we already read that. So
We're up to Joseph's dreams.
yeah, Joseph's dream. So Genesis 37, Bereshit 37, and Yaqub dwelt in the land where his father sojourned in the land of Canaan, and these are the generations of Yaqub. And Joseph was 17 years old, feeding the sheep of his father, and his brothers being young with the sons of Bela and with the sons of Zelpha, the wives of his father. And Joseph brought to Yasharal, their father, their evil reproach, and Yaqub loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he was to him the son of old age, and he made for him a coat of many colors. And his brothers, seeing that his father loved him more than all his sons, hated him and could not speak anything peaceable to him. And Joseph dreamed a dream and reported it to his brothers. And he said to them, "Hear the dream which I have dreamed." And I thought you were binding sheaves in the middle of the field, and my sheaf stood up and was erected, and your sheaves turned around and did obeisance to my sheaf. And the brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed be master over us?" And they hated him still the more for his dreams. And he dreamed another dream and related it to his father and to his brothers, and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream, as it were the sun and the moon and 11 stars did reverence to me." And his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream which you have dreamed? Shall indeed both I and your mother and your brothers come and bow before you to the earth?" And his brothers envied him. And his father observed the saying. And his brothers went to feed the sheep of their father Shechem. Oh, my bad. Of their father to Shechem. And Yasharal said to Joseph, do not your brothers feed their flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." And he said to him, "Behold, I." And Yasharal said to him, "Go and see if your brothers and the sheep are well, and bring me word." And he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a man found him wandering in the field, and a man asked him, saying, "What do you seek?" And he said, "I am seeking my brothers. Tell me where they feed their flocks." And the man said to him, "They have departed here, for I heard them saying, 'Let us go to Dothaim.'" And Yusuf went after his brothers and found them in Dothaim, and they spied him from a distance before he drew near to them, and they wickedly took counsel to slay him. And each said to his brother, behold, that dreamer comes. Now then, come, let us kill him and cast into one of the pits. We will say, an evil wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what his dreams will be. And Reuben, having heard it, rescued him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said to them, shed not blood, cast him into one of these pits in the wilderness, but do not lay hands upon him, that he might rescue him out of their hands and restore him to his father. And it came to pass when Yusuf came to his brothers that they stripped Yusuf of his many-colored coat that was upon him, and they took him and cast him into the pit, and the pit was empty, it had not water, and they sat down to eat bread, and have lifted up their eyes, they beheld, and lo, the Ishmaelite travelers came from Gilead, and their camels were heavily loaded with spices and resin and myrrh, and they went to bring them to Egypt. And Yehudah said to his brothers, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to these Ishmaelites, but let not our hands be upon him, because he is our brother and our flesh. And his brothers hearkened. Interesting. So Yehudah is selling out his brother. Interesting. And the men, the merchants of Midian, went by, and they drew and lifted Yusuf out of the pit, and sold Yusuf to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of gold. And they brought Yusuf down into Egypt. And Reuben returned to the pit, and saw not Yusuf in the pit, and he rent his garments, and he returned to his brothers and said, the boy is not, and I, where am I yet to go? And having taken the coat of Yusuf, they slew a kid of the goats and stained the coat with blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know if it be your son's coat or not. And he recognized and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast has devoured him. A wild beast has carried off Yusuf. And Yaqub rent his clothes and put sackcloth on his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and his daughters gathered themselves together and came to comfort him. But he would not be comforted, saying, I will go down to my son mourning to Sheol. And his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold Yusuf into Egypt to Potiphar, the eunuch of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. And that's 37. So there's some interesting stuff here. I thought it was interesting that Yehudah, which is actually the same name as Judas, sells out his brother, or tries to sell out his brother. I just find that interesting because you see later on Yahusha being sold for 30 pieces of silver. So I do find it interesting, certain parallels you have here. Yeah. So, go ahead, Brother Joshua. I think that was your hand.
So this is a chapter that every little bit in context, like you really have to pay attention. And I say that because I've heard people, and for a minute it definitely baffled me, and I was able to see what they were saying. Because so in verse 28, then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew up and lifted up Yusuf out of the pit. So I've heard people say that it was the Midianites that drew them up. Like, so the previous verse 27, you have them saying, let us sell them to the Ishmaelites. And then in 28, it says, then there passed by Midianites, and they drew him up and lifted him up. So some people think that it was the Midianites who drew him up, and it wasn't actually, even though they intended to sell them, the Midianites got there first and pulled them up. But if you actually pay attention to this whole story, the Midianites are being interchanged with the Ishmaelites. It's referring to them as the same people traveling in the same caravan. And the reason I say that is because verse 28, you see it says, then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Yusuf out of the pit and sold Yusuf to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. So right here, it has the Ishmaelites being the final people that have Yusuf, right? But then when you get down to verse 36, it says the Midianites sold him into Egypt. So they have to be interchangeable. They're not two separate. I mean, they are two separate groups of people, but these people are traveling together as one caravan. So it has to have been his brothers that sold him. But I can see why people would get confused because there's it words it. Then they're passed by Midianites, and they drew and lifted up Joseph. Because there's no vowel points, it's easy to get confused on that.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's no punctuation mark. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to make sure I'm getting what you're saying. So you're saying that in context, it's saying that his brothers were the ones to give him to give him to the Midianites to sell into Egypt.
Yeah. And the Midianites and the Ishmaelites are being listed as one group of people, even though they're one is from one of Abraham's wives and the other is another group of people. Even though they're two separate group of people, they're traveling together and being listed as one group of people.
Interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if they intermarried with one another at some point. Because you have Midian. Midian at one point in time does know Yahuwah. Supposedly historically, when Masha met Zipporah, like she already knew about Yahuwah, knew about the mountain of Yahuwah and all that. So it seems like the Midianites are a ethnicity that are like Shemite, it seems like. So I kind of wonder if there's like a intermarriage of Ishmaelites going on and why they would be considered one people, or like interchangeable. That's something I just want to look up myself because there might be a reason why they're interchangeable in that chapter. I'm going to see something. Ishmaelites and it.
Maybe at this point they were just both traveling to Egypt at the same time, so just decided to travel together.
Yeah, I think they're actually considered the same people, is what it is. From what I've looked at here, Britannica.com, the Midianites traditionally have been identified as Ishmaelites, part of because of okay, trying to see if there's any historical backing to this or if it's just opinion. Let me see. Are the Midianites descendants of Ishmael? It seems like most commentaries don't even agree on this. This seems to be very ambiguous verse that not many people can agree upon. I just kind of wonder if they're the same people or if they descend from Ishmael. Trying to think, who's the father of the Midianites? This is an interesting article. I'm going to send to see what you guys think. This is interesting. Because they're kind of linking the Ishmaelites as the same exact people as the Midianites. And if this is the case, that would kind of reconcile the way that verse is worded. That definitely would make a lot more sense if it's the same people. They're just using interchangeable titles. That would kind of reconcile that a little bit. The term Midianite probably identified a confederation of tribes that roamed far beyond this ancestral homeland, a usage that explains the biblical references to Midianites in Sinai, Canaan, the Jordan Valley, Moab, Transjordan, Eastern Desert. And that was cited by Actemeyer, Paul J. Actemeyer, Harper's Bible Dictionary, San Francisco, Harper and Row, 1985. That's an excerpt from that dictionary. Yeah. So there seems to be a clue in Judges 8:22-26 that possibly Midianites are Ishmaelites ethnically. So this is just an interesting article to look more into, because I do think there's a reason why in one breath they're called Midianites in that chapter, and then in another breath they're called Ishmaelites. There seems to be a reason for that. A lot of the times, and I think me and you, Brother Josh, we were talking about this the other day, historical vernacularisms and all that, and different terminology is used so that the reader understands terms that are familiar with them. Could be that the Ishmaelite title became kind of not as well used as Midianite title, and that could be why it's interchangeable there. It seems like that's just a theory I have here. Why in the same verse you have two different terms being used for the same group of people? Is there could be it might be trying to point the reader to that they're the same people. Is the possibility. But yeah, that's a good point to bring up, because it does get confusing. You think there's like three people groups because of that. You think that there's like Ishmaelites and Midianites and then Joseph's brothers, and you're like, what the heck's going on? So yeah, that is a 2 point to bring up. Do you have anything you wanted to mention?
No.
Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, the only other thing is that the only other explanation could be that you have two groups of people that are traveling together, and that could be the only other explanation. But yeah, I definitely want to look more into that. What is the connection between the Ishmaelites and the Midianites? So here we go. All right, Genesis 38. So this is the story of Tamar here. Tamar and Yehuda. If you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It happened at that time that Yehuda went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. There Yehuda saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. Yehuda was a Chezib when she bore him. Wait a minute. Yehuda was in Chezib when she bore him. Okay. And Yehuda took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Yehuda's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah put him to death. Then Yehuda said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground so as not to give offspring to his brother. So what he did was wicked in the sight of Yahuwah, and he put him to death also. Then Yehuda said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah, my son, grows up. For he feared that he would die, like his brothers. So Tamar went and remained in her father's house. In the course of time, the wife of Yehuda, Shua's daughter, died. When Yehuda was comforted, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hirah the Aldulamite. And when Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance to Enai, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Yehuda saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He turned to her at the roadside and said, come, let me come into you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, what will you give me that you may come into me? He answered, I will send you a young goat from the flock. And she said, if you give me a pledge until you send it. He said, what pledge shall I give you? She replied, your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she rose and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Yehuda sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the men of the place, where is the cult prostitute who was at Enai at the roadside? And they said, no cult prostitute has been here. So he returned to Yehuda and said, I have not found her. Alas, the men of the place said, no cult prostitute has been here. And Yehuda replied, let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat, and you did not find her. About 3 months later, Yehuda was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality. And Yehuda said, bring her out and let her be burned. As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, by the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. And she said, please identify whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff. Then Yehuda identified them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not know her again. When the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. But as he drew back his hand, behold, and his brother came out, and she said, what a breach you have made for yourself. Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward, his brother came out with a scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is another situation where Judah's being wicked, and Yahuwah needs to make sure, though, that this idiot that as married Canaanite, he's married a Canaanite wife, had children from a Canaanite wife. Now Yahuwah's got to go around that to make sure that the seed of Messiah is not being tampered with. So now he's got to create a situation where, unbeknownst to Judah, he would actually, have relations with a woman that's of Shemite lineage. And so the whole claim here is that Tamar would have been of a Shemite lineage. So Yahuwah would have created an opportunity for Messiah to still come through that lineage, because mind you, if all of Judah's line is Canaanite, then you have a huge genetic problem there, and the seed of Messiah can't go through Judah anymore, which that would make Yahuwah break his word. So what Yahuwah has to do, foreseeing this, he creates a situation with Tamar, so that through Tamar,
Right.
you get the seed of Messiah. So I believe that's what actually happened there. He realized Judah was being wicked. Judah didn't want to marry, any type of Shemite woman. And he not even before that, mom, the mother of Judah's children was a Canaanite. So you have the problem of all Judah's children at this very point in time are all Canaanite bloodline, intermingled with his genetics. So you have a huge problem if Yahuwah didn't do what he did. So I believe Yahuwah allowed Judah to do what he did and concealed it from him that it was his daughter-in-law, so that the seed line of Messiah is actually saved. That's my opinion on it. Go ahead, brother Joshua.
Where's that? This is interesting, and I haven't fully figured this out, but just gonna pull it out. You have Yahusha coming from the line of Perez, but then you have his brother Zerah, and you have Zerah sticking his hand out first, and the scarlet thread being put on Zerah, and we see a lot of that times. It's scarlet thread pointing to salvation. With Pasach, you have it with Rahab. They have her put the scarlet thread outside her house when they destroyed Jericho. But you have it, rather than it being on Faraz in this case, you have it being on Zerah. He sticks his hand out first, but then Faraz is the one that comes out first, even though. So I don't know what to make about it. There's definitely something there. Yahuwah wouldn't have put it there, but it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a parallel to Ephraim and Manasseh in a weird type of way. Kind of like the usual firstborn is surpassed by the secondborn. That's just a theory I just thought of.
I just don't know why the scarlet thread is. You would think that the scarlet thread would end up on the hand that Messiah's lineage comes through.
Yeah, well, if I remember correctly, the genealogy for him in the Brit Hadashah, both are listed in that. Perez and they're both, because they're from Judah.
Yeah, but it doesn't have Zerah in any of those lineages. It comes from Perez, not Zerah, because it can't come from both brothers.
That's true. Yeah. I do know the thread, to your point, the thread is used a lot, pointing to Yahusha, even with the sacrifices. If I'm not mistaken, there's a red scarf or thread that they put in the hyssop for the red heifer sacrifice. So that's definitely used a lot. Yeah, I don't know what it could mean that the other one took thread. I'm really not too sure about that one. I also wanted to make mention of here that this is something that we get later on in the Torah, and some people might be saying that, man, that's kind of harsh just because he didn't want to bear children to his brother. But what you got to understand is when your brother dies, that's your job. That's your job as a man, and making sure that your brother's lineage or even his name, not just pronunciation or proper name, but that his character moves on and that his legacy moves on, is for you to fulfill your role as a brother-in-law. which would mean then because your brother's wife is now a widow, you have to marry the widow. And we see like an example of this, not exactly, 100% exact, but you see example of this where in the story of Ruth, the one guy doesn't want to be the kinsman redeemer, so Boaz does it. But they give a law later on. If you don't want to do it, you get degraded in public, like you get spit on, for not wanting to build up seed to your brother's name. So I know in our Western culture that's looked on as weird, but in their culture that's looked on as a brother humbling himself to do what's best for his dead brother, which is to make sure that there's seed being brought forth, because if there's no seed brought forth, then his brother's name doesn't carry on to the next generation. There's no one to give his brother's name to. So and you see this in Torah where if a man dies, one of the tribes, I forget which one in the book of Numbers, there's two daughters of a man from a certain tribe. They go to Yahuwah because their father died and their father had no male children. They're like, for us to get this inheritance, there had to be a male kinsman, and there wasn't. So what are we supposed to do? And Yahuwah, out of his mercy, says, well, in this particular case, since you have no brothers, no uncles, no this, no that, you can have an inheritance if that, and Yahuwah even makes a law, if a man does not have male children, only female children, then his daughter, the inheritance would go to his daughters. So we see how important that is later on, what's mentioned in this chapter about bearing seed to your brother, and taking your brother's widow and marrying her. And you see this even in the Brit Hadashah, this concept that John the Baptist, John the Immerser, rebukes Herod. He says, you can marry her when your brother's dead, but not when he lives. Go ahead, brother Joshua. Oh no, you didn't have anything else? Okay, so I just want to explain that because I know we already touched on that on a previous study about the difference between put away and divorce. I just want to reiterate, when someone loses their partner, whether a woman loses a husband loses a wife to death, you are no longer bound to that law of marriage anymore. You are free to marry another. So I know there's a lot of confusion in the Messianic Hebrew roots community on that, but it's very clear when the husband or wife dies, that significant other is able to remarry. There is no, there's no sin to remarrying after you lose. If a woman loses a husband to his death, she's free from that law of marriage, vice versa. So just wanted to kind of put that out there. So
are you only free if they pass away, or can you still be free if they're here?
You can be free from a law from the bill of divorcement as well. If you're given a bill of divorcement, then legally it's binding and you're no longer married. And what would happen was in the early first century land of Israel, what happened, sis, would be it was so important that they had that bill of divorcement that men would not even betroth a woman unless she could prove she was divorced. Unless she had that bill of divorcement, they wouldn't even get engaged, quote unquote, because a man would not want to marry another man's wife. What would happen sometimes, if the woman's not showing a bill of divorcement, you're trusting her word, and she could be married to someone else or put away. Where she's put away, she's still married to that husband, and you're marrying another man's wife, and vice versa. So when someone puts away their husband or wife, they're actually still legally married. It would be like
separation.
Yeah, the world kind of perverts it, but yeah, separation is the closest thing in the world that you can compare to being put away. You're still married, you're still binded together, you're still bound by the law of marriage, but that person has done something that honestly has caused the other person not to trust them and now has put them away. Fornication is the only reason for being put away. So fornication would cause that other person, whether the wife does it to the husband or the husband does it to the wife, causes that other person to feel like they need to punish them because sometimes with infidelity like that, you don't trust that person anymore as you did beforehand. So now you're, for a limited time period, you're putting that person out of your household, and now they have to in the Hebrew culture, if a woman's put away, she goes back to her father's house. That's what would happen. So, and once she's not put away anymore, the husband would bring her back into his house under his roof. That's usually how it would work. Now, if someone's put away and then they commit fornication again or adultery again, then the other person usually would divorce them. If they're seeing that significant other is not repentant after being put away, then that's kind of what Yahuwah did with Israel, really. In Jeremiah 3, it says, I put your mother away. And she has still committed fornication. She still committed whoring. And I have now given her a bill of divorcement. So see, this concept is lost in Christianity due to the faulty translators mistranslating put away for divorce and not fully understanding the difference. So put away is like a punishment. It's like a part-time punishment for the significant other, whether the husband cheats on the wife or the wife cheats on the husband, that person that has committed the whoredom, a lot of the times would be punished with being put away. The majority of the time, usually the putting away would be with the husbands would put away the wives the majority of the time, just the way it works with the headship in the family. Usually it would happen that way, very rarely, even though Yahusha does speak of women putting away their husbands. Rarely, the majority of the time, though, is the husbands doing that. And what happened was around Yahusha's time, the Pharisees had Pharisaical Talmudic law that allowed them to put away their wives for any reason. So what's really going on in Matthew chapter 5 and other places is Yahusha is dealing with these Talmudic rabbis, the Pharisees, that, can we put away our wives for any reason? Like they're trying to get Yahusha to say, oh yeah, even if she doesn't cook right, you can put her away. That's really what they're trying to get Yahusha to say. And they're trying to trap him. So that's really what's going on. But Yahusha even says, putting away was not so in the beginning. Masha gave you that law because of the hardness of your ancestors' hearts. So that's really what's going on. Yahusha is saying that, from the beginning, Adam and Kua never had to worry about being put away or divorced. Go ahead, Sister Alyssa. I think that's a message, or let's see here. Oh yeah, that is Matthew 5. I think it's 29 to 32. Where the Greek word there is put away, not divorce. And even earlier in the chapter, it says, can we put away our wives for any reason? So see here, certain translators get this chapter correct. I really recommend the Son of Man Bible for this chapter, only because they're one of the only ones that don't translate put away for divorce. Which it causes a lot of confusion. All these evangelical translators either are doing this on purpose or by ignorance. So yeah, it would say Matthew 5:28, and I say to you that everyone who looks on a woman to lust after her, and actually if you look at the Greek word woman, by the way, it's actually talking about another man's woman. So it's actually talking about a wife, someone's wife. So it actually should have been translated from the Greek. And I say to you that everyone who looks on someone else's woman or wife to lust after her has already committed adultery. So this is another thing that the church doesn't teach you. Me lusting after a woman that has not been married yet is not adultery. It is whoredom. There is a difference. Adultery is lusting after someone else's wife. Okay, so that's the problem too. These evangelical translators are mixing stuff. They're not differentiating stuff where they should be. Okay,
But how about if you are married?
If you're married and you lust after someone else that's married, that would be considered adultery. So like adultery is having sex or at least psychologically even wanting to have sex with someone that is already married. Fornication is in general when you lust after someone. So the major difference is that the other person's married where the other person's not. That's the only difference. It's both sin, but they're different type of sins. One is worse than the other. One, you're lusting after someone else's wife who's already taken, who's already in covenant with someone, versus you're lusting after someone that's not in covenant, not married yet. It's still sin. It's just there's different types of sins, and they're not every sin is equal. So what Yahushua's dealing with though is he's dealing with in this chapter, Matthew 5, the difference. He's dealing with the topic of putting away, and he's also dealing with, don't even think to marry someone that's already married. That's what he's dealing with. So the proper context of Matthew 5:28 is that you lust after someone else's wife, you have committed adultery. If your eye caused you to stumble, then it goes on to that. Here we go. Verse 31 is where it talks about the put away. It was said, whoever sends his wife away, let him give her a certificate of divorce. Now, it doesn't. So again, it says if he sends away his wife, doesn't say put away. So this is a huge confusion here that people think that you have to give a bill of divorcement when you put away someone. That's not the case at all. You can put away your wife without divorcing her. Moses put away his wife for a time and then brought her back into his house without divorcing her. So sending away means like kicking out, like you're sending them out of your house. And then you have verse 31 saying, and I say to you that everyone who puts away his wife, except for the cause of sexual morality, meaning except for fornication. So if you put away your wife and she has not cheated on you, that you have caused her to commit adultery. Why? Because if you're putting her away and she did nothing wrong, she could vindictively marry someone else because she felt she's been wrong. So now she's vindictively going to marry someone else. And now you've caused her to commit adultery physically because now she's married someone else while she's still married. So this is what we don't understand because we've been raised in an evangelical background that doesn't understand Torah. This is why. So this is why the majority of the Hebrew roots movement does not understand this. And that's why they teach that if you get divorced, you can't get remarried. Nowhere in scripture does it say that. Nowhere. Matter of fact, the only way to remarry is to get a certificate of divorce. That's the only way. And I understand what Paul says and all that, but what people got to understand is Paul is not Yahushua. He's not allowed to add to Torah. He's not allowed to give commandments with especially a commandment that would contradict the Torah. He's not allowed to do that. And if he does, and if he did do that, which I don't believe he did, I know a lot of people take that verse to mean that you can't ever divorce an unbelieving significant other. I respectfully disagree. I think that's an incorrect interpretation of that verse. And not taking the whole chapter into context. The whole context of the chapter is that that's what Paul feels you should do. It's his opinion. It's not a commandment. He's saying, you should stay with your husband, perhaps that he would convert. But Paul is not putting a law on a woman to be forced to marry to someone that's never going to convert or vice versa. You know, a husband stay married to a atheist wife that will never convert. So now you're like tortured to be with a person that is unequally yoked with you for the rest of your life. That, you know, that does not agree with Yahuwah's character at all. Yahuwah is not going to punish you to stay married with one person forever and ever and ever. When even with believers, there's a allowance for divorce. So generally speaking, scripture actually allows divorce, and you don't have to be cheated on to divorce. There's no law for that either. So that's a misconception too. The problem is we don't know the difference between put away and divorce. That's the problem. So anyway, go ahead, Sister Sadia. I see you got your hand up.
Okay, here I come. Okay, I had it up a little bit ago because I wanted to tell you that too, that as you were speaking of fornication and adultery, and if you lust after a woman, and that to expound on that a little bit is if you're looking at other women on Instagram, Facebook, magazines at the liquor store, a woman walking across your path, and you have an eye that's longer than just a look, you know, and there is you allow that to come into you. You're opening the door.
Yeah.
You have to turn your head. You have to run away. Don't think that if any man, any woman, if you go sit in the bathroom by yourself, that is acceptable. It's not, because you're not alone. Yahuwah is always there. And with this internet, I don't know, we were talking about that, about how the internet has been, you know, a bad tool as good as a good tool, because so many children, young men and young boys are watching all these videos that they should not be. It is raping the mind. It is fornicating against their own selves. And also it's molestation, because a child, a young man, I don't know what the age limit is in Israel. I think it's 30 years old for a man, right? For him to get married, and anything any sooner, I'm not sure, you know, that could be just a Yehudim, what you call it, regulations made by the rabbis. I'm not sure, but all I know is that young men, because they say, oh, it's part of nature, they can, you know, handle themselves. You know, that's not true. That's a lie. And that's from the pit of hell, because if you already, you know, it's not your men nor women, but men mostly, because they can spill their seed. And I think there's a story in the book where it says when one man spilled his seed, he died. So,
Yeah.
you know, you've got to really realize that these young boys, poor young boys, are seeing all these stupid movies. Even in games, they can dress up like a woman if they want, you know, and have her all figured out. It's not good for your mind. It is very deceptive. It opens the door to you're opening the door to not being pure. You want to be pure before Yahuwah. Don't let, oh, it's okay, everybody does it. Don't let that get into your mind. You know, it's like I was on a Torah, one of those Torah studies, I don't know, but the guy was confessing that he had a problem with, you know, taking care of himself in magazines. I'm thinking, dude, if you've been asking Yahuwah to help you out, why are you still confessing this problem? Because you know what? You, men and women, you be careful how you dress. Because if you're out there flaunting your boobs and your booty all over, then you are hurting your brother. You are murdering him, because he's going to look at you as lust. He don't care what you are, who you are. It's called lust. He's going to lust after you. My old Bible study teacher used to say, you know how you're strutting. A woman knows how to strut. She knows how to either behave herself, walk properly, walk with dignity and beautiful character, or she can walk out there looking like a hoe, getting everybody all riled up. So your choices, you make your choices, because you're not going to tell Abba, well, Abba, I didn't know that they were looking at me like, you know what? Blow that out your wazoo, because you know doggone well that if you're out there, bending over, showing your cleavage crack that goes all the way through your belly button, you know what the heck you're doing. That's all there is to it. Same thing for men. Same thing for men. Men, behave yourselves. Men, you're going to be tempted by women out there. Turn your head, because you're turning it for Yahuwah. And he does not like that. It is, if you open that door, you're entertaining it. And that doesn't stop there. We fight not against flesh and bone, but against spirits and principalities in high places. Satan knows your weakness. Either you learn how to ask Yahuwah to give you strength, or you deal with your own sin. And don't think, and people think because they go to Shabbat, it's all done and over, we're clear, we're clean. Absolutely not. It's a walk every single day. Get a grip of your walk like you're supposed to walk. Be a man of character. Be a man that knows how to turn around. Remember when who was it when they uncovered his wife? Jacob, right? Was it Jacob, right? That his son uncovered his
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah,
But
Reuben uncovered his dad's concubine. Yeah.
yes. Now, what did the other two brothers do? They walked in backwards. They covered him and they walked out. Can you guys?
You're talking about Noah
Noah.
and his
Oh,
sons.
okay,
Yeah.
so
Same thing happened with them.
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Okay, that's where but they walked in backwards.
Mhm.
They didn't walk in. Oh, hey, let me just throw a blanket over it. Wow, look, no, you got to know yourself. You've got to know that Yahuwah is right there, and I'm saying this because it's going to go on YouTube. And you know what? This is something that people take lightly, and I don't care, but I'm going to speak the truth because it's not good. Because our men have not been taught properly. They have not been taught to turn their heads. They have not been taught that Yahuwah. You think you're in secret doing your thing? Let me tell you something, honey. You got the devil right next door to you, his little demons, telling you, oh yeah, do this, do that. Let me tell you, you're obeying.
Yeah.
Right then and there, you're choosing right then and there who you are serving. Are you serving the Father that sent his son to die for you, to wipe you of all your sins, to help you walk the walk? But you turn around and say, no thanks. So actually, you're doing the same thing Eve's done. And the devil ain't going to give up. But you're the one that's got to make that choice. You're the one that's got to say, I will serve Yahuwah. If I got to run, I'm going to run. Because we know one guy that ran, and his name is Joseph. He ran from Potiphar's wife. You guys keep running. Don't turn back. Women, straighten your butts out, because the horrors of Egypt are the ones that are here today, showing our young little daughters, our 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds, how to dress so seductively. It is a shame and it's sad and it shouldn't be. And we got to wake up. We got to wake up, because Cleopatra, or was it Cleopatra or the Queen of Sheba? I don't know, one of them. They used halter tops. They wore sexy clothes.
Yeah.
Do you want to be like them, the princesses, or do you want to be set apart, Hayeli Shah, for Yahuwah? You guys make your choices, but you will pay one day if you don't straighten out.
That's right.
You can't say, but, there's no buts. Before you, like my teacher used to say, before you walk out that door, bend over, turn around, check yourselves out, girls. Make sure that you're not attracting some man out there, because you're the one that's causing him to stumble. Not the man. The man's already dealing with his own issues, but you're out there and you're giving it free. He's going to look. That's all there is to it. You know what? You look at your brothers, you look at your neighbor, you look at the stranger as somebody that Yahuwah is trying to catch, not you. All right, I'm done. That was my spill.
I
Hallelujah.
agree with you,
Hallelujah.
sister, and I will
Hallelujah.
tell you, I will add one little caveat. This is something that men and women wrestle with, and I can tell you that if it is something that anybody struggles with, if you go and you repent, truthfully repent from your soul, he will release you from this. I'm telling you, he will release you from this. And that's all I want to say about that. But, you know, obviously men do struggle with it, I think, a bit more than women do, but women are not free from it. And, you know, a lot of people think that, well, I'm not doing anything to anybody else. I'm not hurt. No, that, you know what? That's a very unrealistic look. And when you really get into the word and you really get into sexual immorality and all the different facets, you realize that our temple is of the set apart spirit, and that we cannot just be doing these things to Yahuwah's temple. So that's my say.
Or, you know, like you said, I'm glad you said it that way. We cannot make our brothers sin.
Yeah.
We
right.
should not. If we love our brothers and sisters like we say we do, then do not make them stumble. We're not supposed to. We're not supposed to make anybody stumble. What good are we? Who are we if we make people stumble? What does it say about somebody making someone stumble? Better for children, but if you look at it, better to tie a noose around your neck and jump into the deepest part of the sea, because that's going to be your payment.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
Be careful.
And I just want to clarify, because I know people get confused with the spilling of semen thing. That happened in the previous chapter we just read. The reason it was sinful was because he was commanded to bear seed to his brother.
Yeah.
In general, I know this is a Catholic teaching. This is something we got to unlearn. It is not breaking Torah to not bear children. For a man to pull out, there's nowhere in the Torah it says it's wrong to do that of itself. When you're having relations with your wife, there is no command in the Torah that every time you have intercourse, you have to get your wife pregnant. I just want to make that clear, because I've heard that growing up in the evangelical churches. They would kind of try to take that story of Judah's sons and try to paint a blank statement that you can't ever do that with your wives, when in actuality, the reason it's sin to begin with is because he's supposed to give children to his brother.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's sinful in it of itself. It's
Mhm.
sinful because his dad told him, take your brother's widow and you're to make her your wife and bear seed to your brother. So that brother that got killed was told to bear seed to his brother.
Right.
And he on purpose
Disobeyed. Yes.
pulled out
Yes.
and spilled seed on the ground. So the intention of him spilling seed on the ground was wicked. That's the reason he got killed. The intention was wicked. It wasn't like, you know, or if a husband and wife are not ready to have children yet and they're married and a husband pulls out, that of itself, I just wanted to clarify that that's not evil. So I know
I thought that different. So forgive me. I'll say it right now.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to clarify for people, because I know that tradition is there in the church. I know that. So I know, especially with the Catholics, I'll say that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That if they'll have you believing that if you have sex-free enjoyment, you're somehow sinning, or if a husband and wife have they enjoy intimacy with one another a little too much, they're sinning. So I just wanted to clarify that up, because I've heard people use that chapter that we just read to say you can't ever spill out your semen. Whenever you have sex, it has to be for the purpose of procreation.
Oh,
You know.
yeah, that's true. I've heard that too.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mom.
Taking a step further,
Yeah.
just because I never thought about this before. Is there anything in Torah? I don't think that there is, that Yahuwah is not for birth control. I mean, can
Well,
some-
the fact that I will say this: the form of birth control the world takes is definitely not what he would approve
because
of,
it's foreign.
because it's pharmakeia and it's drugs anyway.
But there are other methods.
There are other methods, like I just explained. One method, that's the most natural method, that is not condemned in a general sense, and it is not spoken against in a general sense. If a husband and wife are not ready to conceive children, it's not, Torah never says you can't do it in general. So as far, I would say that's probably the most righteous type of birth control would be pulling
Yeah.
out. I'm sorry if there's children listening, but I'm just being honest with you here. But that's probably the most natural or any kind of righteous birth control. Now, as far as what the world calls birth control, heck no. Drugs, this, that, and no, I would not have, and I would personally not want my wife putting anything up her, to, all these other forms of birth control. I don't believe condoms are righteous. I don't believe any of that is righteous at all.
So, okay,
Yeah.
I got it. So only like the natural way.
I think the natural way is probably the only righteous type of birth control there is out there. This is my opinion, by the way. I'm not preaching this as doctrine. I'm just saying this is my opinion.
Here's a thought.
You know,
Here's a thought. I got pregnant on the, pull out. I had an IUD and I was doing the rhythm and I got pregnant.
wow.
I strongly believe that Yahuwah is in charge of the children.
Mhm.
Because there's barren women and there's barren, men.
Mhm.
When Abba, it's the gifts from Abba, not us or anything we do, because he's the one that creates the baby. He's the one that knows each and every one of us by name before we're even born. So I don't think any method works other than you. That's how I look at it, because I ended up losing that baby at 5 months. So, and that was pretty sad, because, I was going to take my consequences, my chances that the IUD would go into the baby's head. And I had to sign a consent that I was, aware of the IUD and the dangers of an IUD. And the dangers was it finally, the baby died and it started coming out by itself. I don't know. I had to go into the hospital, have it completely removed, but the baby had already started coming out, but that's why I say, I believe Yahuwah is behind every child. He knows, everything, because I did my best. And I used to work for OGBYN. So I know how we would count for pregnancy. And when a woman ovulates and where she's at the most fertile, and that doesn't work either.
No, it doesn't.
No,
No, it doesn't.
and not even breastfeeding works either. Not even breastfeeding, because they said I couldn't get pregnant if I breastfed and I had my second son.
Yeah.
It won't
I can
work.
definitely see that point of view. I can definitely see that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, I think the only righteous birth control is the one I mentioned. I really think, I don't think there's any other that you really see in ancient times of them, it being natural. Other than that, the modern
Well, they
technology
didn't have anything then.
is, not natural. The pharmakeia to stop birth is not natural, because really what you're doing is you're killing the embryo. I'm pretty sure with birth control, at some point you're killing the embryo.
Right.
So it if there is a righteous form of it, the fully pulling out before the sperm comes out, that's really the only natural form of it I see. And
The truth is, by using any of those things, we're trying to inhibit what perhaps the father wants to have happen.
Yeah.
So,
And that's why I would say with individual couples, the best thing to do is to pray about it. Even if you think you're not ready for a child, just pray about it. Most husbands and wives out there. But yeah. the problem is the world uses contraceptives today for wicked purposes too. Even the intent is wicked. They want to keep having sex without responsibility. So even
And abortion
even
or another one.
yeah, abortions, but even the preventative stuff, they only do it because they want to keep having,
Yep.
they want to keep having sex before marriage.
Yeah, that's right. That's the whole issue right there.
Mm-hmm. Pretty sad, right?
Yeah, it
Yes,
is.
It is sad.
I'd like to chime into what Sister Sadie was talking about, the women, the way women dress provocatively and all that. But on the other hand of all that, yes, we know about how women have been dressing since, ages going back to ancient of days and so on. But I always think about married couples who, if they truly believe the husband is the head of their household and he is to protect his wife, but on the other hand, allows her to dress provocatively, how she's choosing to dress, then he's not covering her and he's not protecting her if he allows that.
That is true.
Yeah.
Nobody really
That's a
ever
good point.
Nobody ever brings that up, I notice, about the husband's position on protecting his wife, on how she dresses.
Yeah.
Sometimes she may not like it, but that's part of his duty as a husband, to protect her
That's
from
right.
the perverts out here.
The vultures that are out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of them,
Josie.
whatever term you want to put. Yeah, exactly. I have some other choice words, but this is
Man whores,
this is-
I know.
It's-
I know.
this is live, but I think because there might be children. We've already
Josie, the
Huh.
children know more than us already at this age. If
oh
they're even,
yes.
I'll put it this way.
Oh.
My generation knows a little too much at our young age.
Hey,
Uh,
We know a little too much, and that's part of the problem is that
yeah.
at 20 something years old, I knew as much about being a virgin, knowing as much about intercourse as my parents. So that that shouldn't be in our society. That you got young adults knowing more about sex than the former generations at that same age.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. But I agree with you, Sister Josie, 110%.
Nobody really talks
it,
about that. The woman is brought up. Sometimes I feel like the woman gets a way
all
more.
the blame. Yeah.
Yeah, but no. I mean, yes, but on the other hand, everyone is just as accountable, man or woman.
And the husband should be modest too. Us guys, we need to be very careful. I'll be honest. I'll put myself on the spotlight. I used to, trust me, man. I used to wear guinea tees all the time. Trust me,
Yes,
I was not that modest when I first came into this walk. I would still wear muscle shirts a lot that would be showing my whole biceps and all that.
Yeah.
And I was very convicted of that because I was like, you know what? You wouldn't want a woman dressing half naked on the street provoking you. Why are you going to provoke a woman with how you're dressed? I'll be honest. I don't even wear basketball shorts when I'm even in the summer when I'm out. I put a pair of jeans on because I'll put a pair of baggy jeans where women can't see my legs or anything.
Right.
I feel bad. I don't want to be provoking
exactly.
them. So,
but I believe as you get closer and closer in our journey with Yahuwah, as we draw, if we're truly drawing closer to Him, then we will have these convictions. I've been teaching women on how to dress, I've always said, come on now, let's be real here. We all have a mirror, right? And I say, like, before I leave my house, I look in my mirror make sure everything's adjusted properly,
Mhm.
and so on. I said, we all have a mirror. So I look in the mirror and ask myself, is this pleasing to you, Abba? Not to people, not to my family, not to me, not to anyone on this earth, but is this pleasing to you before I walk out the door?
Mhm.
It's really that simple. We all have a mirror. Who are you
Yeah.
trying?
Yeah.
Who are
It
you
is
trying
that
to
simple.
please? Who are you trying to please? That's it. To me, it's that simple. So
I think that's a good point. And I think, because quote unquote, we're in Torah, we shouldn't be talking like this. But guess what?
This
We're
is true.
grown ups. If our children at 5 years old and 3 years old know how to dance on a pole or know how to do the booty up, they've been watching too much.
look at
They've been
Doug.
watching too much. We got to protect our children. It is our responsibility.
Not-
As I'm getting older and learning more, you know what? I'm gonna tell you, we thought it was cute when Alyssa, she was little, and she danced on a pole. She knew how to dance really good, but we didn't know what we know today. So if we can avoid mothers and cause them to think and wake up in early
Yeah.
on stages, this will help them in their raising and training. Through our mistakes, may they learn so that we can pass the baton of knowledge to them so that our daughters aren't the victims of some pervert out there that, would hurt them and harm them. It's a very, I'm always telling Linos, I'm always saying, you keep your girls close to you. Even the way I put the fear of daylight into her because I tell her, we watched a movie once and it was about a young girl that didn't listen to her parents. She ended up, getting caught in trafficking and they ended up killing her. I know it was a little gruesome. And Nevaeh kept saying, Grandma, let's just turn it off. I go, no, mija, I want you to see this is what happens when you don't obey your mom and dad. You need to listen to them because they're protecting you. And it was hard for her, but she understood that, I know because our kids aren't dumb anymore. We don't have toddlers till they're 5 anymore. We have toddlers for 6 months, 4 months. They're like adults by the age of 2, and it's sad, but that's just the way times are. It is so advanced that children can't even be children like they used to be.
Well,
But
no, because they're invaded with everything they're watching.
the TV,
Well, that's up to
Mika,
the parents.
Mika, Puka, whatever it is, Mickey Mouse has a saying. It's like a chant that the children learn how to say. And that, that chant is, a horrible chant for the parents to keep them involved in Mickey Mouse and blah, blah, blah. But look at Mickey Mouse's, all the cartoons that they share. Roger Rabbit, Mrs. Rabbit, what's her name? Roger Rabbit, that girl, I forget her name, but she's dressed like Jessica Rabbit. And look how she's dressed. Look at her shape, and then you got Little Mermaid. You got all these little, these.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other subject
All
altogether.
deception,
Yeah,
all
Disney.
deception. It's
Yeah.
deception for our children.
Yeah.
We have to teach our new generation the truth about all this and being open. I believe this is a crazy form, but it's a true form. And we are responsible to teach. And I
We are,
pray that whoever's going to listen to this video will understand that we went through the problems. That's why we're able to talk about it. That's why we're sharing with you how to avoid your children from the death traps of Satan and all his little tricks that he's got out there. All the Walt Disney crud that's out there. All that stuff is no good. None of it. Look at Tinkerbell. Look at her boobs. Her boobs are out there and her small little waist, and she's a fairy godmother. She's a little, a princess.
seems so innocent at the time.
Exactly. But you know what? It's putting in their little minds, in their little hearts. I want to be Tinkerbell, and especially those that celebrate Halloween and all these horrible other feast days. Already the outfits are coming out. They want to be like these things. No, they want to be like a Yali woman. That's what we should be teaching our children. Cover up, cover your, try your best. Because you know what? I hate to tell you, parents, do you set your child up for a pedophile when you have her half naked out there?
Yeah.
That's what you got to, you know what? They're sick in their mind. They don't care what age. Look at, oh my God, the little girl. Oh my God. Oh, I think her name was Stacy. I'm not too sure. But the reason why they found her killer is because she dug her nails and his flesh was in her nail beds. Come on, guys. Parents, wake up. That had to be a horrific torture for your little girls and your little boys. Keep them next to you because it is not fair to them. You are their protector. You don't let them out of your sight for a second. For a second.
Not in this world.
Not in this time. Not in this time. I can't forget that little girl.
I know.
That was here in Orange County. It happened. That was the most horrific story I think I've heard. Yeah. Yeah, because that's how they caught him, because his DNA was in her nails.
Imagine. I don't want to think about
God, oh God.
You know,
yeah,
but this
well,
is reality. This is reality that
Yeah,
you're
it is.
speaking of. This
Yes.
is the world we live in.
yes.
You know, this is the world
Oh,
we live
Father.
in. So
No.
and you don't have to be a so-called faith person, because I know people that aren't real spiritually in tune, but they have morals and values,
Yeah.
and they take care of their children. They protect their children.
Yeah.
You know, and they themselves are great examples. Remember, we have to be the examples. You know, like the world says, don't do as I do, just do as I say. Well, that is BS. That is such BS, because when somebody says that, don't do as I do, do as I say, that means you're just trying to justify yourself and your wrong. And you're trying to justify yourself and your wrongdoings, because you know you're doing wrong, whatever that wrong is. But you know, you're telling your child, don't do as I do, but you're doing what you shouldn't be doing. Oh, the hypocrisy in that. You think they're really going to believe anything you say? No. Or respect. So there's a fine line to it all.
That's
Oh, I'm sorry, brother Joshua. I noticed you've had your hand up for a while, bro. Go ahead.
Oh, it's all right.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you wanted to mention anything, but yeah, I agree. This is an important conversation to have, because eventually children in this day and age are going to come across this in school. They're going to come across this. I hate to say it, probably by the time they're in kindergarten, first grade, second grade.
Already.
You know, so I hate to say it. If you have a toddler or any of those listening out there, they're probably going to come across this anyway at some point in public school. And they're probably going to not even get this righteous side of the conversation.
Right.
They're probably going to get some type of transgender nonsense in their public schools. So,
well, it's happening already. It's already on. So, you know, it's already happening. It's in the works.
It's called story time. The transgenders that are able to go into the kindergartens. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you know, because I know a multitude of them, but I'm telling the truth. I don't want my child being taught by that. Whatever you do in your own privacy, your own life is your business. You deal with it with Yahuwah. But don't place it upon our children. Don't place it upon our children.
To the innocent young minds, the innocent, you know, they still have some purity. Why are you trying to destroy it in their mind? You know,
Yeah.
I've spent time crying out to Yahusha, saying, Yahusha, it's one thing that Satan is after us, but now he wants our babies.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's after the children. He's after the children. It's so
He's
obvious.
after the children. This is Satan getting this whole transgender thing into the public schools. Yeah, he wants these kids.
Yeah.
Satan is more evil than we can even comprehend.
Yeah.
And I just cried out, please, please protect our babies. Please help us to do whatever we have to do to protect these children.
As a mother, we have to cover our children. We have to cover our children, you know, but really, he is after the children. It's so obvious.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. I think you were trying to say something. Go ahead.
Something that we have to take into consideration as well. Just while, because I was having a conversation with a lady, my Uber driver, yesterday, and she's a Christian, but she definitely doesn't see it like this anymore. I didn't really ask her how she sees it, but she did mention, you know, at one point wondering like, okay, how can this happen to kids? You know, because we were on the topic of trafficking, and something that we have to take into consideration is, while it's not something that we want for anyone, Yahuwah protects those who are his, you know, and not everyone is his. Satan has children too. A lot of the people of this world are, you know, they belong to Satan. They're children of Satan, and he's going to do what he wants to those who are his. And, you know, up until this world passes away, Yahuwah is going to allow it. You know, we pray that it doesn't. We don't, like I said, we don't want anything to happen to children, but it's going to. But we can at least take comfort in the fact that Yahuwah protects those that are his.
Brother, as you're saying that, you know who came to mind was John Bonet, that little girl. I believe, I believe she was a sacrifice by her parents. And I think maybe the devil danced with them and they didn't see it. And he kept on going because he killed mama by cancer. Yeah. I don't know where the dad's at, if he's still alive or not. I don't know. But all I know is that little girl was a sacrifice. They had her dressed up like as if she was Miss America. And like she was just, she was just, you know what, like you said, maybe those are the children that were born for torture. I don't know. I was going to have to show me that one day, because, you know, I just think that children are, you know, anybody, babies.
I don't believe that's what they're born for. I just believe that Yahuwah allows it, you know. Ultimately, we know that he's on the throne. The enemy cannot do anything before coming to Yahuwah and saying, you know, let me do this or let me do that. Yahuwah, Satan is not in charge of anything. Yeah. You can't do anything.
Yeah, the parents are going to be judged. That's what my answer would be. The parents are going to be condemned for allowing it to happen, because that's their physical seed that they allowed to be treated like a harlot, allowed to be paraded around in front of an audience of people as a harlot. That's even in his Torah. Don't let your child play the harlot. So even the world has to be judged by the Torah, and every parent that's allowed their little child to go to a beauty contest, allow them to put on makeup, allow them to do this, allow them to do that, there's definitely judgment for that. So that's kind of the answer I would have for that, sis, is that he, on Judgment Day, he's going to be judging the parents for that. And they are gonna get a harsh judgment for that.
Oh, definitely.
Because back in the day, society would know not to do that to their children. It's only been in the recent couple of decades that children have been sexualized by their parents, and willfully their parents are allowed them to be sexualized. So it's a common law, even the heathen know not to do, and they allow their children to be playing the harlot. They allow their children, I don't want to go a whole rabbit trail with the Hollywood thing, but most of those
Yeah.
parents know what's happening to their children. They're allowing it.
Yeah.
Like Billy Ray Cyrus, he allowed Miley Cyrus to become a harlot. Most of them
Yeah.
know what's going on. Most of them are in bed
Mhm.
with Hollywood, the parents. So, I definitely think they're going to be judged harshly for that.
Oh, I do too.
But anyway, I do want to just get back on here with. I just want to do at least one more chapter here, since Genesis 39 is kind of short. I wanted to at least do one more chapter. So this is let's see here. So this is Potiphar, and he's the eunuch of Pharaoh. So this is the temptation of Joseph. I'm glad we got on that last topic, because this can
Yeah.
tie into this chapter about fornication, all that, what I was talking about earlier. So here we go. Genesis 39. And Yusuf was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, the eunuch of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, a Egyptian, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites who brought him down there. See, this is why I think Ishmaelites were probably the same thing as Midianites, because the majority of the time it's saying Ishmaelites. And Yahuwah was with Yusuf. He was a prosperous man. He was in the house of his master, the Egyptian, and his master knew that Yahuwah was with him. Yahuwah prospers in his hands whatsoever happens to him.
Somebody's working on something there.
Whatever. Whatsoever he happens to do. And Yusuf found favor in the presence of his master and was well pleasing to him, and he set him over his house, and all that he had he gave into the hand of Yusuf. And it came to pass, after he was set over his house and over all he had, that Yahuwah baruched the house of the Egyptian for Yusuf's sake, and the barak of Yahuwah was upon all his possessions in the house and in his field. And he committed all he had into the hands of Yusuf, and he knew not of anything that belonged to him, save the bread that he himself ate. And Yusuf was handsome in form and exceedingly beautiful in countenance. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Yusuf and said, "Lie with me." But he would not. But he said to his master's wife, "If because of me, my master knows nothing in his house and has given into my hands all things that belong to him, and in his house there is nothing above me." Okay. "Or has anything been kept back from me, but you, because you are his wife, how then shall I do this wicked thing and sin against Yahuwah?" And when she talked with Yusuf day by day, he hearkened not to her to sleep with her so as to be with her. It came to pass on a certain day that Yusuf went into the house to do his business, and there was no one of the household within. And she caught hold of him by his clothes and said, "Lie with me." And having left his clothes in her hands, he fled and went forth. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his clothes in her hands and fled and gone forth, that she called those that were in the house and spoke to him, saying, "See, he has brought into us a Hebrew servant to mock us. He came into me, saying, 'Lie with me.' And I cried with a loud voice. And when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, having left his clothes with me, he fled and went forth out." So she leaves the clothes by her until the master came to his house. And she spoke to him concerning, according to these words, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you brought in to us came into me to mock me and said to me, 'I will lie with you.' And when he heard that I lifted my voice crying, having left his clothes with me, he fled and departed forth. And it came to pass that his master heard all the words of his wife, that she spoke to him, saying, 'Thus did your servant to me.' that he was very angry, and his master took Yusuf and casted him into the prison, to the place where the king's prisoners are kept there in the prison. And Yahuwah was with Yusuf and poured down mercy upon him, and he gave him favor in the sight of the chief keeper of the prison. The chief keeper of the prison gave the prison into the hand of Yusuf and all the prisoners, as many as were in the prison, and all things whatsoever they do there, he did them. Because of him, the chief keeper of the prison knew nothing, for all the things were in the hand of Yusuf, because Yahuwah was with him, and whatever things he did, Yahuwah made them to prosper in his hands. Okay. So that was Genesis 39. Very
So
interesting.
who's, you know what I was going to say? So who is in control always, no matter what the circumstances is?
Abba is. Yep, Abba is. Definitely since hallelujah. Yeah, but this shows us men how practical. This is a very practical thing for us to use when we have this temptation of fornication. You see that even if you have a situation where someone else's wife is coming on to you, you are to get out of there. And actually, even though I don't believe this book is scripture, I do believe this book even expounds on this concept. The book of Ecclesiasticus, Sirach, talks about do not be alone with another man's wife, right? It mentions that in the book of Ecclesiasticus, that you should not even have dinner alone with someone else's wife.
No.
And I agree with that 110%. That actually causes what happens here, because Yusuf is alone with Potiphar's wife. This happens. If Potiphar was there, or you had other servants that were in the house, it wouldn't have happened.
Exactly right.
So now Yusuf had to flee away and run away because he was alone with another guy's wife that he probably never wanted to be alone with her.
No.
And so, you know, she's kind of acting like the woman of I forget which chapter of Proverbs, the strange woman of the book of Proverbs. It talks about don't go near her. She goes down to the habitation of giants, and talks about, you know, her bed goes down to Sheol. Go ahead, brother Joshua, or brother Yahusha, my bad.
So I definitely agree that we shouldn't be alone with another man's wife. However, I think that there are some instances that, in my opinion, would be okay. Okay, so for example, say if you have like someone that's, you know, in their 20s, and they're with a sister that, you know, is in their 60s or 70s, and they're just in the kitchen prepping for a Shabbat and they have to be the only ones there, and everyone else is not there yet. But you know that one of them is married. I don't think that there's any danger of attraction there. You know,
Yeah.
where something like that could happen. That's just my own thoughts. I could be completely wrong on that, but
Yeah. I can see what you're saying. My precaution would be, even if that had to be and I had no choice over that, what I would do is I would keep my distance from her. Even though I'm in the same room as her, I kind of keep my distance, probably not have wine sitting down with her. Like that's what Ecclesiasticus is talking about in the context of being alone with another man's wife, is that like, I forget there's another verse and it talks about don't sip wine with her, or your heart will incline to her. So definitely if you are forced to be in that situation, I would still say kind of keep your distance. You don't
Well,
yeah.
you know why too, brother? Because have you ever heard of beer goggles or wine goggles?
Yeah.
Yeah, before you know it, that the old maid in a shoe starts to look like she's 21. You know, because that old goggles, that beer goggles just
You're
don't work.
right, sister.
Dang.
You are right. You are right.
Yeah.
Sister
Hey.
Sadia is on fire
She's on
today.
target, man. She is on target.
You gotta
There
be
it
careful,
goes.
honey.
Tried to go on that one. That
Let's be real
the
about
wine
this.
goggles.
Yeah.
Real about it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've had experiences with that from my past, definitely. And sometimes you'll like a girl, but you know you can't be with her because she's already taken. And then speaking from a guy's perspective, you get a little wine in you or a little malt liquor in you. Say things you shouldn't have said. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
No, it's situational. You gotta be careful. What's
We
Yeah.
have a we have a friend that's we all know of, and he gets a little alcohol in his system. Before you know it, his hands get a little fresh. Although
Oh,
he knows better than to come near me, but he gets a little flirty and stupid, And it's like, dude, you realize what you can do here? You can ruin your relationship with the whole family. When you cross that road, you're not just going to cross that person. You're going to cross the whole family. Do you want to be without your family? Because we love you, we accept you, we like you, we love you. But don't cross. You know what? And you know what? And us women have to be wise not to be alone. Not to be alone with that person.
I agree.
We all know. We
Yeah.
all know who is there. We ain't stupid. We all know. We're dumb. We're not dumb. We know what we're doing. We set ourselves up. So if you want to be wise, be wise. You don't set yourself up.
Yeah, I definitely think there should be boundaries in the fellowship. That's kind of where I'm at, is where Devoted to Yah was at with the separation of men and women. I mean, I have no problem ministering and answering questions, but even at that, I'm very I don't want to get to the borderline of where you're meeting with sisters, one-on-one and this and that. Like, I don't even feel comfortable doing that on Zoom, meeting with a sister one-on-one where it's just me and a sister.
Because
I
things
don't.
can happen even online. That's right.
I've seen things, and that's just me.
No, you really shouldn't be, Doug. You really shouldn't.
I don't even feel comfortable on a chat, like not even outside of video chatting, just chatting with the sister. Like,
Yeah.
'cause I remember there was Sister Victoria had mentioned something in the group chat, and like I didn't want to have like the only thing that I wanted to say was because it had to do with being able to get through a court system and actually turn it over to your favor. And I wanted to mention it to her, but I was like, I'm not going to mention this outside of the group chat. Like, it's inappropriate just to do it, outside of a group chat. So I don't think she saw it in the group chat, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to, I don't feel comfortable just texting outside of a group.
Yeah, because we're all fallible. We're not
Yes.
perfect. We're all fallible. We're all temptation's very easy. So I've seen too many situations where one-on-one like that happens on a chat, or even worse, on a Zoom call, and then you got a whole big thing going on, and then so that I've seen enough instances where I'm not going to put myself up to that type of temptation.
Well, you know what? One thing good about you, Doug, is that you got your mama there most of the time.
Yeah.
So that's two people, but you guys, you boys, you men that are, out there and women are asking you questions and stuff. You got to be careful, because guess who's there? Right there to say, did Yahuwah say that if you eat the apple, you would die? That's what he's going to do.
You're just looking.
Yeah.
That's another thing too.
Exactly.
I just wanted to mention what you were talking about before, sis, back to the conversation before. I don't believe even looking at a woman and looking at her attractiveness. I try my best not to even look at a woman for a second. I try to have like tunnel vision when I'm out, out and about in the world, I try to not look at a woman at all, because I know how quickly that can turn from, oh, she looks nice, to
Yeah.
temptation. It goes straight into there very quickly. So that old stupid thing of look and not touch, that's a bunch of nonsense.
No, that is a bunch of
That's
nonsense.
a bunch of
Because
nonsense.
it starts with the look.
It starts with looking, starts with desiring, with looking, and then you get to David and Bathsheba. So
Yeah.
if David didn't look from his wherever his roof,
Balcony,
if
yeah.
he wasn't looking from his balcony or his roof to that other house,
Yeah.
he would have never got into the situation he got into. So looking usually leads to other things.
And
usually.
the minute he looked, Satan came slithering
Yeah.
along,
Yeah.
telling David, "You have been
Yeah.
in war all your life,
Yeah.
aren't you? Aren't you worthy of
Yeah.
having a little bit of,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can only imagine what Satan
Yeah.
was whispering
Yeah.
in his ear. In a
Mhm.
second, Satan was there,
Mhm.
just feeding him.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother Joshua. I think after you we'll close this recording. I'm gonna need to charge my tablet soon. Anyways, down to 21%. Go ahead, bro.
I think with this generation, I speak for myself, but I know it's not just me. I know a lot of men in this walk, were raised in a generation of, soft porn to hard porn, whether it be explicit or whether it be just in television, and I think that has really desensitized a lot of people. Where you mentioned like not looking at a woman for a second, because there can be a physical reaction without thoughts even, without there even being a thought in your head. So it's definitely something that you have to be aware of. And I'm the same way. I won't even look at a woman for more than I'll try to avoid my eyes as the very best that I can.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your body can deceive you. There won't even be a thought there.
Mm-hmm.
The reaction comes. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the old adage: don't be inviting temptation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you invite it, you're kind of like, by us just looking even at a second at a woman that's
Mhm.
beautiful, we're kind of inviting
Yep.
fornication in,
That's right.
rather than shutting the door right away and not looking at all.
This is a good saying. You cannot get rid of your demons if you entertain them.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect send-off to end with what Sister Sadia just said. So I just want to thank everyone for joining today, and please stay tuned. Yahuwah willing, we are going to be doing a Yom Teruah meeting either on the evening of or the day of. We just need to see when everyone can get on. So please stay tuned. All of our brothers and sisters out there. We will be back, Yahuwah willing, on Yom Teruah, either on the 26th or the 27th. We'll probably have a meeting on one of those days, Yahuwah willing. So thank you, all of our brothers and sisters, for stopping by today, for listening in, for watching. Have a very Baruch rest of your Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.